We speak to lots and lots of people in senior positions around the world, and they all have the same attributes. They all have the same, the same mindset. In their own company, they feel like they can't do any more, but they've got so much to give. And so we're giving them this incredible opportunity to go and become known experts outside of their own organization, help maybe smaller companies to learn from them, and also getting towards that stage in their career to start doing some kind of non-executive director roles or maybe some board roles.
Busy is not productive. This show is about the difference. I'm Santi Tacoronte, and on Productivi-Tree, I talk to the thinkers and experts who are reshaping how we understand time, focus, and meaningful work. Subscribe wherever you listen. Let's dig in. Andrew Winton is a global CMO and growth leader with over 25 years of experience scaling media and platform businesses. He has led marketing and commercial functions at PepsiCo, Amazon Prime Video, Sky, The Times, T-Mobile, and Kaspersky. Today, he serves as CMO at Digital Advisory, a governed platform that connects organizations with senior independent advisors for high-stakes decisions. He is also the creator of Boom Marketing, a full-stack marketing education program built on Cosmos. He advises founders and leadership teams with practical frameworks rather than theory, and holds a Level 7 diploma for executive and senior level coaches and mentors. Today, he's here to talk about the future of consultancy and how wisdom wins over information and AI when it comes to decision making. Andrew Winton, welcome to Productivi-Tree.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for such a warm welcome. It's great to be here.
And the numbers in consultancy say, I'm a numbers guy. The market's still growing. Yet, we see McKinsey cutting off 5,000 people, Accenture retraining 80,000 headcounts. Sorry for that word, it's horrible. 80,000 employees. What's actually happening inside these firms? Is it a structural shift?
Yeah, I think for sure, there's definitely a change in the nature of how consulting is being delivered now. AI has changed the nature of these businesses, and they're recognizing that change and they're adapting to that change. AI can deliver a lot of the research and insights that they used to do at the kind of junior level, and so they're kind of just recalibrating their businesses based on the kind of new technology kind of that we see around us and we're all using ourselves. So yes, they're learning and adapting, and that is having quite a big impact on their business.
By now, we already know that entry-level consulting has been eating alive. Probably is a bit exaggerated, but numbers said that hirings for junior analysts, and you just gave one of the reasons, is going down. How does that impact the pipeline of the next generation senior advisors? Because, and we're going to speak about wisdom later on. Wisdom comes with experience, but you're not giving experience now to all these junior consultants that were doing analysis and all this thing. How do you think this is going to impact consultancy?
I think consulting is going to be, significantly impacted because exactly as you say, junior, researchers, learn their craft, they learn their skills, they learn from people who are more senior. And there's been always a very clear career progression within these consulting firms. And you learn as you grow and you grow as you go more senior, and you get that experience of understanding how the kind of nature of the consulting firms work as you move your way up through the chain. So if there isn't so many people starting on that kind of step-by-step career progression that normally happens within consulting firms, then at some point there's going to be a drop-off of all these kind of senior experienced consultants, and there won't be the same flow through of junior people who've been through the same, steps of experience that will take them to the senior level with all that experience that comes with it. So I think that will ultimately, in the future, begin to degrade the quality of the consulting because, you'll have all the research, you'll have the great insights, but you won't have that judgment that comes from experience and learning, over time. So it's interesting to see, I think, how they will, manage that, pipeline. It's not a problem right now, but, and maybe not for another 15 or 20 years, but that will be an issue that they'll have to face, as the years go on.
Speaking of one of the main businesses that consultancy used to sell, which was information and information asymmetry, the new thing, so they had access to information you didn't have. Now, I do believe, Andrew, that they still have access to information that you don't have, but a big chunk or a big part of the information they used to provide is now publicly available on a simple prompt. What is left for consultancy to sell?
I mean, I think this is a question that they're all grappling with because, and we've seen examples, haven't we, in the news where, they've been kind of caught out selling big, packages of information, still with kind of AI prompt, bits and pieces left in there that kind of exposed them as clearly just AI prompted material. So there's still a role for consulting firms. Like I'm sure in my mind, these big firms like McKinsey or the other big, big consulting firms have got a very important role to play, and that will continue. And they can still serve, their customers and give them advice for those very big transformational programs when it's complex and it cuts across, major parts of business ecosystems. Then it's not just about, the AI information that can still help them, but they're going to have to adapt and learn how AI can become a technology that they use to empower their business to deliver better services, better consulting. And I think the lazy consulting firms or the poor ones will probably fall by the wayside, and you'll find that the really good ones, the really smart ones like Boston Consulting Group or McKinsey or the other ones, they will, as they always have done, they'll learn and they'll evolve and they'll use this technology to their advantage. And I think these early slip ups that they're making, I'm sure will kind of will work themselves out in the future. So the consulting market is huge. It's 400-500 billion dollars globally. This is, if not more. So there's room for these players to still offer great services to businesses that want that kind of big big transformational insights for sure.
There's a difference between having data and knowing what to do with it. You have worked with organizations, with large organizations for 25 years. In your opinion, how does leaders confuse these two things, data or information, and action and taking action out of this data?
I think in my mind it's really clear and simple, but a lot of people seem to get sort of confused by by it. They sort of they confuse data as knowledge, and data is just information that you have to do something with. So the best information that you can kind of pull together to make a decision is then how it enables you to make the best decision. So it's one of those things that yes, you want to have as much information about a particular situation as you possibly can, but you've got to, understand which bits of data are more useful than others because all data is equal. Some is more useful, it's more powerful, it's more factual, it's more verified or whatever. Um, and then once you've got that data, it's the human judgment, the experience, or the smart people that take that information and help you inform which is the right direction to go. So, taking insights and actionable insights from data is the valuable piece. The data itself is just the kind of the toolbox in which you pick the pieces that you need to help you make the best decision for where you need to go next.
Let's deep dive on this one a little bit because um, I feel, and I think it's fair to say, I've seen companies, individuals trying to prompt away away from a prompt their strategy. Right? How much of a strategy do you think AI can help you? This toolbox that you mentioned, and how much do you think it's becoming, let's call it a template, a framework that everybody has, and how should leaders deal with strategy in the era where information is so accessible?
I don't think it's, in a way, it hasn't really changed. AI has just enabled us to kind of collate and collect information much more readily, much more quickly, in much bigger volumes than ever before. But again, you've still got to test it. We know that AI doesn't always deliver, 100% accurate data. So you need to make sure that the data that you're getting is accurate, and therefore you still need, human judgment to verify that it's true, and helps you make the right decision. And AI is also a tool that can give you kind of very deep and narrow information about a topic, but doesn't necessarily give you the breadth that sometimes you need. For example, in Amazon, they're very good at getting a lot of data about a very narrow topic, but it doesn't necessarily give you the breadth to make a broader decision. It's a difference between, you can be, that your clock can be very accurate. It might tell you the time very accurately, but it might be completely the wrong time. So it can be very accurate in terms of its precision, but the time can be completely wrong. And that's where you've kind of got this very deep, pool of data, but not very broad pool of data. And sometimes you need to take the different data points across the different, the landscape to give you a much clearer understanding of what's happening before you then decide where you should move to next.
I read that only 2% of board directors have meaningful AI expertise. Boards are making companies' decisions, including AI decisions. But they don't necessarily understand AI completely. What do you think is the real cost of this gap?
I think that is probably one of the biggest gaps that needs to be very carefully addressed, because if you've got boards, making decisions from their own kind of AI prompting that they're doing on the fly without really understanding or making sure that the nuances of that AI information are correct, it is like the Wild West. And if you've got board members going in and just prompting ChatGPT or Claude and coming to the board with all of this information, thinking that they've done their due diligence, then they haven't. And I think this is where businesses have got to get much more rigorous, in my opinion, about the tools that they enable and how they're ensuring that the AI platforms that they're letting their employees from top to bottom use are verified properly and being strictly controlled, so that the information that's coming out from them is helpful and accurate. Because if it's not, then it doesn't take, a small decision or a big decision, but made slightly inaccurately by just 1 or 2% based on an inaccurate AI prompting that's made the decision wrong in a huge organization might be a very, very significant decision further down the line that could have huge ramifications for their business if they're making it, with data that has misinformed them in the first place from an AI that's hallucinated and told them something not quite accurately. A friend of mine, he was on LinkedIn the other day doing a video. 18 months ago, his business partner had asked AI to do a bio for her, and it did a bio for her, and it said that she'd written a book, and it said exactly what this book was, but she'd never written a book. so it kind of came up with a book she'd never written, and actually what they then did, this guy and his business partner, they decided to write the book that AI had said that they had already written, and they did. But originally she had never written this book. It didn't exist. It was completely hallucinated by AI in her bio. And people can see this and can believe that, this information is accurate. So, I mean, and this is what worries me is, the data layer that we're all believing isn't 100% accurate. And at what point, and again, and inaccurate data layered on top of inaccurate data just gets worse and worse. It's kind of like Chinese whispers. If you, she's written a book in this prompt, but by 10 points down the road, she's written a whole library of books and she never even wrote one book. This is kind of how it extrapolates. A tiny piece of misinformation in one prompt that sits in every single LLM, citation over a period of months suddenly evolves into this huge inaccuracy around a position and that really does worry me a lot, I think.
Andrew, I want to capitalize on your expertise in media, marketing, and sales. I recently wrote a piece, which is coming, I think, this week in LinkedIn and in Medium, about something that made me really sad, which is a tweet by Nike which was probably the epitome of AI created content, right? Super
Mhm.
prefabricated AI expression. I was thinking to myself, really? Nike? It's, yeah, you're saving a few
Crazy.
bucks.
Yeah.
Fine, whatever, right? But it looks so bad. But then I started to think, does this really have an impact on the consumer? Is the consumer aware in general
Mm,
that
mm,
this sounds very AI generic, or is it only me because I am working around AI all day? And then I had this second thought, Andy, that I want to run
mm.
through you, which is, will we get used to it and normalize these sort of expressions? This is not history. This is history in the making. I was
Mm.
thinking, well, people will likely get used to this very soon. What's your take on that?
Yeah. I mean, it worries me. It makes me sad, that
Mm.
I can see I see all this AI generated content. Like I was mentioning before, I was in London yesterday, and when you're in London, you're bombarded with advertising on the tube. In particular, there's tube car panels, there's big A boards, there's digital boards down the sides of every escalator in the tube. And you see all this content from brands. And now, of course, because it's digital, they can, small brands, big brands, they can all advertise. And you see this and you think, oh my goodness, some of it is so poor. Like the messaging is awful, the meaning is unclear. There's no there's no marketing skill, there's no emotion, there's nothing here at all. It's literally just filling a gap. And it will do nothing for the brand. It will do nothing for their business. It's literally going to generate no engagement with customers whatsoever. Um, but unfortunately, I think what AI does is it kind of opens up this world of creative and messaging and the ability for every business to kind of do that quite quickly on the fly and sort of get away with it and sort of say things like, well, we're just testing lots of different messages, so it's easy now with AI just to kind of come up with 100 different messages and test them out and see which ones resonate with our with our ICP or with our target audience, and then we'll optimize towards those ones. But what a horrible world where all that kind of amazing creativity and thoughtfulness and smart advertising that kind of really draws you in and makes you feel emotionally connected to a brand is gone. The world will be increasingly blander and less interesting, and more flat. And I think that is always sad because great marketing, great advertising is like art, and art is a real sort of leveler of how smart and civilized a culture is. And if you bring it all down to the lowest common denominator, then we're all going to live in a very beige and boring world. And it will be a sadder world without smart, clever, interesting, engaging marketing and funny copy, and emotional resonance. In my opinion.
And yeah, I would understand if a small shop, the flower shop in your corner, or the bakery or the coffee shop does that, because obviously the means and the budgets are not there, nor the time.
Hmm.
But why do you think big companies are falling prey of the AI trap?
That's a really interesting question because that was kind of when I was talking, I was thinking about that as well. Why would Nike, with its billions and billions of dollars, you know, why would it choose to go down that pathway? And and I don't really know the answer to that, other than possibly they're just trying to see whether it has an impact. They're trying something different. They're going again to do things more quickly, more cheaply. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense to me. I'm trying to think when I was in, these large companies, generally, big advertising campaigns would go through a lot of iterations and a lot of, people would be involved in it, and normally a mixture of very creative people and commercial people, and it would be quite a difficult challenge to push it all the way through. So you wouldn't normally just, go live with things very, very quickly without a lot of thought. Um, but I suppose ultimately, every business is commercially driven, and even if Nike, with its huge budgets, can do things in a way that it thinks they're still delivering, good value, but at much lower cost, then I suppose they're all falling into that trap and trying to see whether AI will deliver, equal value but at much less cost. But I think what is the cost that you're really impacting on? is hard to know, and you won't know for a long time, because if your brand value begins to deteriorate because people don't feel emotionally engaged to your brand anymore, because you're not doing things in the same way you were, in the past, your adverts aren't so emotive, or you're using AI and people kind of aren't seeing and feeling and kind of being engaged in the same way, then, your brand equity will go, and that emotional connection to your brand, will begin to suffer. And I don't think any big brand can afford that, because, AI and technology is enabling small brands to pop up all over the place. And challenger brands are constantly popping up and are nibbling the value of these big brands. So I don't think they can afford to do that. In my opinion, they've got to continue to be the beacons of incredible brand experiences, because that's what they can afford to do differently. And so I think they should really think carefully about, how they continue to take, that very high level brand, advertising, emotional, engaging campaigns that they run, because I think they're the things that will keep people attracted to their brands in the future.
We've discussed consultancy, we've discussed AI and the chunk of consultancy that AI is eating away from them. Now you are part of something called digital advisory, which I wanted you to explain now in the next few minutes, because I find the concept to be quite interesting.
Yeah, of
And
course.
the way I understand it, Andy, is that the classic consulting engagement is long and is very costly.
Mhm.
Um, and the experts marketplace, it's complex, noisy, and difficult to access. So you're trying to fill a gap between expertise and consultancy. How does work?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So, along with some other people, some very smart people, we built what we call the digital advisory. It's a human-led advisory platform where we're building an ecosystem of hundreds of executives who've got 20-25 years of experience, who are doing the roles that they're doing now, and they've got, all of this experience through lived work. They all work for big global companies, across the whole, global reach, across every sector, and across every every function in the business. So we've got already about 350, and we're growing in terms of these advisors. And the idea is these advisors can offer to clients or companies the ability to help move, decisions forward. So it's not trying to take the place of big consulting firms that do big, long transformational programs. This is fitting into, helping businesses who are maybe using AI to help generate information, and maybe coming up with, lots and lots of options. This is human-led advisory to help you narrow down those decisions to make the best one of the choices that you've got. So it's something that, boards could use to help navigate a choice of a new technology or a new platform, or a pivot in terms of its budget responsibilities or movements. These are for, quick insights delivered within a number of days from, senior executives who've been there and done that, and can give you their insights. We consolidate that for you and present them back to you in a simple, short report, which gives you this instilled wisdom from all these incredible years of experience from these brilliant executives. It's something that no one else is doing in this way, and it's sort of helping, in our minds, balance this AI human kind of judgment positioning. And we think it's a really interesting way that businesses can make sure that, they're using AI, but they're getting this human element to help them make sure that the judgment is moving in the right direction.
And yeah, I would imagine those are high stakes decisions. So I must ask you, what does governance mean in practice when you're trying to connect an organization to an expert of from another organization that, as you said, has been there already, or can give you good advice about caveats or pitfalls or whatever? How do you ensure governance between this very senior advisor and that sensitive decision?
So, of course, we have lots of checks and balances to make sure that, that there's no conflicts of interest between the advisors and the clients, and the advice is always anonymized anyway. So we would use a number of advisors. So for example, if a client is in a business and their brief is around moving, a big chunk of their marketing budget from their existing performance budget to, say, using an AI tool to help them try and understand whether that move is going to help them or not. They would build the brief, and then we would choose the right number of advisors with the relevant experience from our pool of advisors to inform their thoughts in that decision. When a client puts a brief in to a digital advisory, it's always anonymized from both sides. So we make sure that the client's brief is anonymized and the advisors that we choose are carefully selected, and no conflicts of interest are always checked beforehand. And when the advisors complete the brief on their phones, we always then synthesize all of that information, and the way that we collate it and report it back to the client, there's never individual attribution to any of the comments or any of the feedback or advice that comes from any of the advisors. So everything is aggregated and everything is checked carefully all the way through that process. At the end of the report, we always do explain who the advisors are that have contributed to that particular report. And if the client would like to have a deeper dive with any of those advisors on a kind of one-to-one basis, they're able to do that on a video call, but nothing in the report as it stands is ever individually attributed to any of the advisors. So it's something that we're very conscious of. These are senior advisors in roles in large organizations, and their advice is offered as advice only, and that's how it's always taken.
Andrew, for a leader that is watching this right now or listening to this right now, who's never used an external advisor or is used to traditional consultancy, what kind of decision it's an example for this model?
So with digital advisory, we're not trying to replace the big consulting firms and the kind of big transformational decisions that they can help you with. Digital advisory is much more for, smaller but more urgent and more pressing decisions that run through your normal yearly cycle of activity. So it might be a budget question, it might be a campaign question, it might be a technology or platform question, it might be a question around a direction of travel. It might be about a board decision that you've got coming up in a couple of weeks' time. What we can offer is validation of your own thinking, and we can help you narrow that down. And you can use digital advisory as a quick, inexpensive decision forum in which you can help to use to validate that decision. So if you're going to the board in 3 weeks' time with a decision around a new technology platform, and there's going to be questions, but you've got a very clear view about where you think it should go, then that would be a great one to use digital advisory for. You can get, you put your brief in, you can get a number of advisors to give you their feedback about your decision, and either validate your decision, which you can use with the board, or maybe make you question your decision and maybe even make you move in a different direction. But again, you can still use that document to validate that new direction in your board meeting. So you could say, look, I've had this decision reviewed by X number of senior executives within the digital advisory board, and this was what they said, and I've taken that judgment on board and I've moved in this direction. So it's a rubber stamp of your decision. It helps your judgments, and it's, like I say, for those decisions that flow through your either your normal cycle of kind of planning, or maybe a slightly larger change or pivot to your strategy that doesn't require a huge consulting budget, or you have months in which to help inform you make that change of planning.
I want to move a little bit towards the this other important part of digital advisory platform, which are the experts. And I wanna do it with your own example, Andrew, because you've been a very successful executive in very large companies, and you've done almost everything that is imaginable. When did you decide that you wanted to do something else? And I don't mean to say that you wanted to jump off the corporate ladder or something like that. But when did you
Yeah.
decide, and
Yeah.
why did you decide that you wanted to do more?
Yes. I think for me, the decision was clear that you learn a lot from large organizations, but they operate slowly and they operate within a very tight political framework. The freedom and pace that startups and scale ups can bring you, enables you a sense of freedom and purpose, and you can sort of bring all of the learnings that you've kind of created in your years of working in large corporates, which are often missing in startups. The processes, the operational skills, the abilities that you learn in large businesses are usually entirely missing in small businesses. So you can bring all the best bits of your experience from corporate life and bring them to small businesses that really need some of those processes and systems in place, but they don't come with all the baggage of the politics and the slowness of delivery. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, and you can really adapt and grow. And I love the fact that, I'm learning from, multiple, CEOs and founders I work with all the time. So I've kind of got six times more, plus, businesses every month I'm working with, and I'm learning more and more, and all that learning from all these founders and startups I work in across all these different sectors, I can bring to each of them and to new clients. So, for me, it's a really, so energizing and a kind of evolving and constantly learning in a way that I don't think I would get so much learning from working in one company, for a long period of time. So it's for my brain and it's for my energy.
You have collected more than 300 experts across industries, expertises, and I went through the list, and wow. First of all, congrats for bringing together so much brain power.
Thank you.
But then I thought, I don't think these people, with the roles they have had and they have currently, are moved by money.
Mm.
What do you think it's moving all these professionals to collaborate with your platform, with Digital Advisor, to give advice to other companies?
Yeah. I like to think it's because people who are at that stage in their careers, are looking at how they can give back. And everyone we speak to, and we speak to, lots and lots of people in these senior positions around the world, and they all have the same attributes. They all have the same, the same mindset. They all have all this experience in their own company. They feel like they can't do any more, but they've got so much to give, and so we're giving them this incredible opportunity to go and, become known experts outside of their own organization, help maybe smaller companies to learn from them. And also they're thinking about, the next period of their career when they're probably maybe now getting towards that stage in their career that they're thinking about maybe I want to start doing some kind of non-executive director roles or maybe some board roles for other companies. So this is a stepping stone, gently into that sort of world of advisory and any NED work. So I think that's important. And I think the other thing that's a bit unique about digital advisory is that for all the advisors that are in the global board, we enable them to connect and grow as a network. So we allow them to introduce themselves to each other, and we encourage them to connect with each other. So it's like a mini LinkedIn, but only with this very small select group of senior executives who can reach out to each other. We encourage them to do that. So if they're in London, go and have a coffee with somebody else who's in the board, or if they're traveling, see who might be in the country in which they're traveling. And they're starting to do that. And I think there is that networking piece, which is also, I think, important for people of that kind of era. We like to network. We like to meet other people. We like to build our connections in that way. So I think all those things together, I think, are the sort of reasons that it sort of really works for that group of people.
I love it, Andrew. And I was smiling because you said it's some sort of small LinkedIn. And with all the pressure and how under fire is LinkedIn right now, I wasn't
I
so sure
know.
you want your network to become another LinkedIn. But let's leave it here.
I said it carefully. I said it carefully. I mean, we're not a social media network. It's just the ability to kind of connect with people and
Correct.
engage in that way. But it's a nice example. I think we all have our opinion about LinkedIn these days. Love it or loathe it. It is become what it's become.
Productivity specifically, which is the meta topic of this podcast, although we touch upon many
Mm.
different things. See, I hate it, but and I think you're gonna agree. Productivity is often framed as doing more or more output. All right, but you have your own thoughts on this. You seem to be arguing something different. To that productivity is doing different things on purpose. What's your take on productivity, AI, and increasing output, which is what we're doing now? Basically, we're doing the same we've been doing, faster. And where should smart leaders, where do you advise your group of very sharp leaders to go in terms of productivity?
I think for me, productivity, is around you have so much time every day. How do you use that in the most efficient and effective way? You have so much energy. How do you make sure you're using it in the right way to make the right decisions? So how can you use the right tools to give you the best information to make the right decisions about how you use your energy and therefore your productive time? I think people are, burning out because they're working so hard all the time, they never stop. So my view of productivity is, you create your own boundaries of what you will do and when you'll do it, and make sure you're maximizing that energy that you've got in the right direction. And for me, what I try and do is be very clear about my day. I break my day up into very kind of clear chunks, and I know when I will do certain things and when I have a break and when I stop doing things and when I start doing things. And I always try and join things together. So I think my productivity hack is, how do you make sure, if you've got multiple tasks, how do you try and do many tasks in one go? So, often you can create, a piece of work which can then feed out into multiple parts of my ecosystem. It doesn't work for everybody, but I can do one thing and it can then feed, several things for several clients, because I can just tweak, the output, and it will deliver, multiple outputs from one sort of piece of work. So that's kind of how I work. But I think ultimately, if you like what you're doing, then your energy level is high, and it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like it's what you do. I work in this way. I don't feel like work is a chore. I feel like work is, just blended in with my life. And I love engaging with people and working with different people, and the energy that brings me, drives my energy. So I think that's how I work.
I've prepared a bunch of questions here that I want you to answer in 30 seconds or less.
Okay.
And I want to start with this first one following up on the first one that you said. Number one, what is the advice you give, one advice you give to someone who is working on something they don't enjoy?
Just get it done. Get it done and then move on to something you do enjoy.
Number two, one book that changed how you think about leadership.
It's a book called Will It Make the Boat Go Faster, by somebody called Ben Hunt Davis. And he was an Olympic rower who won gold medal in Sydney. And it made me realize that leadership is about two things. One, about a shared common objective, that everybody knows where you're trying to go, and then a recognition that everybody involved has different ways of being great. And you need to understand how everybody in your team operates at their best possible performance levels. And everybody does that in different ways. And your job as a leader is to help people know where you're going and understand all the individual strengths in your team so that they work together collectively towards that goal.
Number three, what is the most overrated management concept right now?
I think for me, one of the great things at Amazon was they never obsessed about what the competition were doing. They obsessed about what the customer wanted and how do we make sure that we deliver, what the customer, wants in the best possible way. So I think for me, this kind of obsession that some companies have about looking at what is best practice, what is our competition doing, you never do better than just trying to copy your competition. You do better by going your own way, thinking about your own product for your own customer. So for me, best practice, forget it. And don't obsess about what your competition is doing.
Number 4, what is an AI tool you actually use daily?
I mean, every day I use ChatGPT and Claude. And I think, for me, just pick one that you kind of enjoy and get the best value from, and then just make sure you stick to it, giving as much information as you want to, so that then the outputs that you get from it are the best that you possibly can. I mean, I've tried various ones and I'm moving around a bit, but for me, ChatGPT and Claude, and they both deliver good results for me.
And number 5, the best decision you made by ignoring conventional advice.
I think for me, when I joined Kaspersky, which was a Russian-based cybersecurity company, a lot of people were telling me that was a bad idea. You shouldn't go and work for a company that's kind of Russian-based. But actually, I did, and it was a great decision. It was a brilliant company. I had an incredible 5 years working there, doing things I probably could never do in almost any other company that I'd ever worked in or could think to work in. So sometimes you've got to go with your gut and ignore what people say and just do what you think instinctively makes sense for you.
Andrew, let's wrap up this conversation. For leaders, the many leaders that listen to this podcast, that are willing to try digital advisory and the use of expertise and wisdom that you have made accessible, what is the best way they can do that?
The best way is to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. You can find me very easily. Send me a message there, and then I will always get back to you. And we'd love to talk to anybody who would like to be a potential advisor, or if you're a business that thinks you could get value from our services, then we'd love to talk to you and let you try our services. Complimentary as well is available. So reach out to me for anything related to digital advisory. Or if you just want to connect with me and learn a bit more about my experience and think you might have a good connection with me, then I love to network and meet new people anytime.
Andrew, thank you so much for this inspiring conversation, and conventional as well. Those are my takeaways of today's conversation discussion. The first one is that consultancy, it's in evolution, in transition. It's more and more clear that clients will stop booking or buying certain services, and they would go for other type of things. And the second is how happy make me see that you are creating something different based on human wisdom, which, as much as we discuss how amazing is AI, which we all use on a daily basis and makes our life much easier, there is this human feeling, this human gut, the wisdom that is impossible to explain, that you are preserving and that you are promoting, so we never lose it. Andrew Winton, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been great to talk to you today. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Productivi-Tree. I hope you found something useful in today's episode. If you did, and it helps improve your life even a tiny bit, that'll make me really happy. Remember, you can find Productivi-Tree on all major podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. If you enjoyed the show, why not share it with a friend who might also find it helpful? Until next time, and keep growing and stay productive.